Welcome back to Logitech. Today we have another new motherboard, ASRock Z590 Steel Legend Wi-Fi 6E. This motherboard costs around 250 bucks, but it already fully support power limit bypass. So you don't need to worry if you want to overclock your processor already. This motherboard also have Wi-Fi 6 inside built in, and it doesn't consume any extra PCIe slot or M.2 slots. From the review I see in the internet, this motherboard VRM is quite good, and it has beautiful RGB feature. As you can see here, this motherboard, it has RGB at here the first one is VRM heatsink, then the second one at the chipset, and also at the board itself. Okay, let's see the feature of this motherboard before we continue unboxing it. Here's the main feature. You can see here it has 14 power base, and also it has Wi-Fi 6, EX Wi-Fi, and then it also have Thunderbolt. Here's the 14 power base design. With this 14 power base, you don't need to worry to supply power for your case CPU. ASRock also includes GPU holder at the packaging and going to patent the design. The last important feature is the RGB at the motherboard with polychrome support. If you are RGB maniac, you might need this feature. Okay, now let's start unboxing the motherboard. We have M.2 screw holder, a Steel Legend keychain, cable straps, a pair of Wi-Fi antenna, M.2 screws, this one the new GPU holder. I didn't open it because I want keep it as new. SATA cables. I don't know why they just give 2 pieces. At the other side, we have the ASRock Steel Legend stickers. We also have 2 manual books. The first one is for hardware and the second one is for software. DVD driver also included. I don't know why manufacturers still using DVD as the driver. Now, let's look at the motherboard. The motherboard design is pretty good. This one is the 14 power pace. It has dual 8-pin power supply, but you just need one 8-pin if you don't do any overclocking. This first M.2 slot can only be used if you're using 11th gen processor. The bottom M.2 with shield support for Gen 3 and also SATA interface. The RAM slot support up to 4800 MHz RAM. This one is the M.2 Wi-Fi 6. They use the M.2 EX210 for the Wi-Fi. Another M.2 slot for Gen 3 and also SATA. This USB-C front panel supports Thunderbolt. It also has 6 SATA ports, 4 ports facing side and 2 ports facing up. Now let's look at the back panel. What is this? They're still using PS2. Other than that, we have 2 USB 2, HDMI, DisplayPort, Wi-Fi out, 3 USB 3, 1 USB-C, 1 LAN 2.5G, and audio jacks. They should really change this PS2 to something else useful, at least like USB 2. Now let's take a look at the BIOS. This is the easy mode. You can adjust the XMP profile, check your storage configuration, check your fan status and fan curve, also tools to instant flash or internet flash your BIOS. Let's go to the OC Tweaker menu. Usually for the cheaper motherboard, you will see this menu as the BFB or ASRock base frequency boost, and it has limitation of wattage. But in here, it doesn't have any limit. If you enable, it will fully bypass the power limit. If you have G series processor, you can adjust to higher ratio. However, if you don't have the key processor, you can only adjust to lower ratio. In the RAM profile, you can manually adjust your RAM overclocking profile. Next up, voltage configuration. You can set to stable mode or overclock mode. I usually undervolt my processor with offset mode, so it basically will be the current voltage minus what is set in the offset. To change the chipset setting, you go to the advanced mode and go to the chipset. In here, you can change your PCIe speed and also enable the NVIDIA resizable bar if your GPU is support. From the preview before, we can say that this motherboard is actually very good for the price. The strong point of this motherboard is the first one, it has 14 power phase, which is allowing you to fully unlock your potential of the CPU. So if you have K series, you don't need to worry about the overclocking anymore. It will supply enough power for your CPU. Or for example non-K like 10900 or example 11900, you can actually fully use the performance of 10900 in here, because some motherboard limited to 125 watt. The second strong point of this motherboard, it has very big VRM heatsink, so it can cool down the VRM very good. I don't feel any heat when I test it with 11700 with this motherboard. Another strong point is this one, the Wi-Fi 6. You don't need to buy a Wi-Fi anymore. It's already embedded with Wi-Fi 6, and it doesn't consume any M.2 slots. So you still can fully use this M.2, this M.2, and also the below M.2. The last strong point I get from this motherboard is it has a beautiful RGB in the VRM, chipset, and in the motherboard itself. So if you are RGB freak, this one is pretty good actually. I think those are the very strong points for this motherboard. However, I still have some concern like in the PS2 port. They really need to change that to something useful like USB right now. And yeah, the common of the 500 series I mean, is this. The primary M.2 slot is only used if only can be used if you use 11 gen processor. If you use 10 gen processor, you cannot use it, except the ASRock B560M ITX, because it only have one slot. It can use to either Gen 4 or Gen 3. But for the common 500 series motherboard, this slot only can use if you use 11 gen processor. Okay, so far this one is very good motherboard, and it's only cost you 250 bucks, of course. That's all the review from me. If you like this video, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.